Good morning. I'm Christy and I'm your service leader today. I want to give you a little bit of background on Zoom in case you haven't used it before. Remember that we can see you, so keep that in mind, which I didn't just do. You have a choice of gallery view where you'll see half of everybody, and then you can click on an arrow on the side and see the other half of us. Or you can be in speaker view where you just see a few people on the side and the speaker is large. We're asking you to keep your microphones muted during the service, and during Joys and Concerns and the discussion afterwards, you are welcome to unmute if you have something to share. Does anyone have any announcements today? Raise your hand, wave, and somebody can tell me if you're waving. Any announcements? Okay, we are very fortunate to have our UU congregation family to support each and every one of us. And in order to continue our virtual services and to keep our beautiful building protected and ready for our eventual return, we ask for whatever financial support you can provide today. There are multiple means to do so, and you can go to the website or the Sunday Service Bulletin for that. Thank you for your donation today. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Zoom County. I mean Lake County, but it feels like Zoom County. I'm up here in Michigan and in Shiawassee County, and I feel like I'm in the same room with all of you. So it's kind of magical. Today we are honored to welcome David Williamson, who will offer our message today, The Establishment of Religion, a How-To Guide, and that will happen later in the service. I also welcome any visitors who are here, and if you want to introduce yourselves or your visitors, there will be time during the discussion after the Joys and Concerns at the end of the service. Our opening words today are by Erica Hewitt. Some of us are bringing our best selves to this space, and some of us are bringing our struggling selves, including pieces we might be ashamed of. But all of us are welcome here, and all of us are loved. Some of us already have open hearts, and some of us aren't quite there yet because our hearts have gotten a little beat up this week, or they might have forgotten how to trust and open. But your heart is welcome here, no matter how bruised, and we welcome you among us. All of us are imperfect. We're here to drop our defenses and trust that what happens in worship is powerful and life-giving. Together, we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning. You are welcome here. I will now attempt to light our chalice. This is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. And after I light the chalice, please join me in singing Spirit of Life, followed by a silent reflection. So we need the words to Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. We will now enter into a time of silent reflection. Please join me in saying our congregational covenant when it appears on the screen. Oh, there it is. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now, please enjoy listening to one of our favorite UU singer-songwriters, Jim Scott, who performs the social distancing version of Gather the Spirit.
I wrote this song 30 years ago so my friend Pat LaManna could give it this contemporary message. Gather in spirit, not face to face. Let's do what we can to flatten the curve. Wash your hands often and don't touch your face. This virus is something no one sweeten the time. Take up crochet, write a new song, read a good book, bake brownies sublime. Gather on Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe until this crisis ends. Gather in spirit, pray for the scared, the sick and the poor, the lonely at home. Count all your blessings and reach out and share. Let everyone know that they're not alone. Gather in Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe until this crisis ends.
David Williamson is from Central Florida Commission on Religious Freedom. He is also in the Florida Humanists, and he represents Florida in the Freedom from Religion Foundation. So we are looking forward to hearing his message today.
Good morning. Let me get my screen set up here and ready to go. I'm really glad to be with all of you today, or at least as with you as I can be. The drive over from Oviedo to Leesburg this morning was awfully short. I'm sorry not to be there in person, but it's good to see everyone's smiling faces and foreheads and the occasional empty chair. But that's the advantage of Zoom, right? One of the downsides of these Zoom meetings is all the snowbirds have to go to church twice on Sunday, the one up north and the one down south. So they don't even get to enjoy a meal on the town afterwards either. But on the bright side, we have the technology to get together. And we were thinking a little while ago about what it would be like 100 years ago if we didn't have the technology and the flu of 1919 or 1918. So it's a very different experience, and it's good to see all of your faces today. Thank you, Christy, for the introduction, and I want to thank Kit for the invitation, and also Chris for the coordination of this morning's broadcast, as well as everyone else who makes your experience today possible in these challenging times. This is a new presentation I've developed, so I'm really excited to give it, and I hope you'll provide your feedback to me. Should be sharing my screen now. Am I sharing the right one, though? That's the question.
We're good.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Very good. If you think you might like to be in touch, please jot down my email, and I will provide it at the end again. That's david@cflfreethought.org. We're going to start with something Ben Franklin wrote in 1780. When a religion is good, I conceive that it will support itself. And when it cannot support itself, and God does not take care to support, so that its professors are obliged to call for the help of a civil power, 'tis a sign, I apprehend, of its being a bad one. So here Franklin acknowledges that religion may bring value to society, unless and until it needs government to help prop it up. At that point, he has its doubts. So let's look at the Establishment Clause briefly. It reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. If we evaluate the word respecting, We would think of that as with respect to or regarding, obviously. The word establishment was not a confusing term for the constitutional framers, who were very familiar with official state religions. Each of the colonies had official religions in their own charters, and Mother England did so as well, and it does today. So the clause is quite simply read as, Congress cannot pass a law regarding a state religion. It does not read, Congress shall not establish a state religion. That is quite a different statement, and it is much less restrictive. If the founders meant to do this, they had every chance to do so. The clause was debated and discussed thoroughly. Even more conservative language than this was rejected in favor of this version of the clause during discussion. So what is a law respecting an establishment of religion? Is it as simple as a government proclamation that declares religion X as the state religion? If you wanted to create a state religion, how might you go about doing that? What types of things do you need to be in place for your state religion to thrive? Would you need to have one person or committee in charge so there was cohesion? Think about the Roman Catholic Church and how they've had millennia of power, or centuries of power rather, led by the Pope. Would you need resources and access to ensure that your religion would prosper? So today, with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek, I'm going to talk to you about how you can establish a religion if you wanted to do so. And by establish, I mean an establishment of religion in government. And my hope is that we can help you dispense with the very tired arguments that the Establishment Clause only forbids the government from establishing an official religion. It not only forbids a state religion, it also prohibits the government from favoring one religion over another, and from preferring religion over non-religion, or in fact, non-religion over religion. So neutrality is what it calls for. So the hypothetical here is, if our government, local, state, or federal, was simply passing a law or amending the Constitution to declare that religion X was now the official state religion, what would that actually do? While it might make the next steps easier, it is absolutely and exclusively, I argue, those next steps that make all the difference. Because if the only thing your state religion had was a statement of support and no further action was taken to support it, you just have a piece of paper and not much else. So to establish a religion that actually has government support instead of just lip service, you need for it to have power, money, control over your lives, special access to your children, privilege to some and exclusion of others based on beliefs or practices. So let's start with power, because without any power, the religion is helpless. You give a religion power through special access to government officials. This could be found where government officials rely on religious leaders for political guidance, and the signs of this influence are clear not only in the laws they pass, but in how they talk about the bills being proposed and considered. Very often, your political leaders are going to sound like religious leaders when they speak of legislation. You give a state religion power when you allow or encourage religious leaders to electioneer or campaign on behalf of political candidates or elected officials seeking to maintain their seats. As a matter of law, you might have a constitution, as we do, that provides a prohibition against a religious test for public office. But if you wanted to establish a religion, you might be sure to give benefits to those candidates who openly profess alliance with the state religion. You might even make the political landscape friendlier for those people than for the detractors. And there are many organizations out there looking to make it easier for the quote unquote right candidate to get elected. These are just a few. A way you might do that is to conflate the values of all people with the values of the state religion. And you're familiar with this. For instance, by using the phrase, America is a Christian nation, or calling human values Christian values. The more these phrases are repeated and allowed to be stated without pushback by political and religious leaders, the easier time the state religion has at accessing even more power. You establish religion by giving it money. If you don't give it any money, it is far less effective. To do this, you would allow and even encourage government agencies to use financial resources and government property to promote and practice that religion. You might encourage churches to meet in government spaces by offering them discounts or in-kind donation exchanges for rental fees, which is done in the case of local schools here in Central Florida whose facilities get upgrades or remodeling by local churches in exchange for discounted rental rates the church has to pay. It might seem like a win-win situation, but this is what it looks like when you have a state religion in work. You establish a state religion by directly or indirectly supporting that religion through special tax exemptions or direct aid that other religions do not receive. Indirect aid would be things like grants to repair church buildings, which are not as far-fetched as they sound. Indirect aid might be support for religious schools through vouchers and other funds which no longer have to be covered by the church or the parishioners. The congregants can free up resources that now are able to be used by the organization for the purpose of funding its religious objectives. Each year, about 167,000 Florida students use your and my tax money to pay private schools a tuition in amounts of more than $1 billion. That's billion with a B. The overwhelming majority of these are religious schools, all of which are legally allowed to discriminate against LGBTQ and non-Christian students. Just this year, under the Paycheck Protection Program, as part of the COVID-19 relief efforts the federal government put into place, churches of many denominations, along with religious nonprofits, have received nearly $10 billion of government grants and loans. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened. The Catholic Church alone received $1.4 billion. Most of this $10 billion will never be seen again. And that's the way the program is designed. So to prop up your state religion, you have to give it money, lots and lots of money. You establish a religion by giving it control over your lives, your cultural norms, control over your bodies, and even your mind. Because without any control, it does not have any ability to affect change in society. You give religion control when you allow it to restrict business days and hours of operation based on religious rules, such as the official Sabbath of the religion and the observance of holidays. You give religion control so it can have the power to restrict the sale of those things which fall outside the tenets of the religion. You give religion control when those sentenced for substance abuse-related offenses by the court are required to attend religious addiction treatment programs that promote the beliefs of the state religion. 12-step recovery programs like Alcoholics Anonymous are often run by Christian churches and based on a Christian worldview. And attendance in these programs is often required by our secular courts. You give religion control over your mind when you allow it to disguise itself as mental health care. It does this when religious parents and others prop up conversion therapy to change sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. You give religion control over your bodies when you're seeking reproductive health care in the form of abortion or birth control, and when you're admitted into a hospital that is religiously based and the need or desire for treatment goes against the tenets of the religion in charge of the facility. And at the end of your life, the established religion gets to say whether you have the right to die with dignity and on your own terms. So to give the state religion its due, you have to be sure to relinquish a lot of control. You establish a religion by giving it access to your children. The reason the state religion needs this access is so that the kids can be indoctrinated when they're young, but also while they are out of the home where religious instruction might be different or non-existent. To indoctrinate children, your state religion would do things like promote religious after-school programs for elementary school kids. This is when churches and other religious organizations rent a classroom on campus, often on a Wednesday after school when students get out early. That way, parents who don't have an option for childcare are forced to keep them in school so they get involved in religious programming. If you haven't heard of the Good News Club, I encourage you to look into them. To give the state religion access to kids, you allow teachers, staff, and outsiders to illegally promote and operate religious student organizations, which are required by law to be founded and led only by students. You establish a state religion and take advantage of public school kids when you have prayers during during school board meetings, or at graduation ceremonies, or even right on campus before school starts with teachers, staff, and religious leaders participating alongside the students. To give the state religion access to your kids, you pass laws allowing religious instruction on scripture to take place in public schools. And you empower school officials and employees to participate in religious worship alongside the kids. And by the way, each of these last two that I mentioned have been tried in recent years in Florida's legislature, and they're part of the Christian nationalist agenda aptly named Project Blitz. We've seen more bills than those two, but this is an initiative that is a concerted effort to implement anti-equality policies at the state level and to call out the lawmakers who oppose them. They're influencing legislation one bill at a time to undermine the true religious liberty we have, to attack LGBTQ people and the protections being put in place for them, as well as to remove the freedom of choice in reproductive health care. One of the areas of focus in the early stages, which is where Florida and other states are in the process right now, is to focus on school children and public school resources. So if you want your state religion to be successful, you'll have to have access to the kids. You establish a religion by giving that religion and its followers privileges that others don't have. In this way, you incentivize support so you can grow the state religion, whether through increasing the numbers of believers or simply normalizing participation in the state religion. Like having prayers in the tradition of that specific religion at government events. To do this, either elected officials pray themselves or they invite people that agree with the state religion to pray the way the state religion would prefer. You establish a state religion by promoting a national day of prayer or having prayer breakfasts strictly in the tradition of the state religion, and you instruct all constituents to join in your prayer. In this photo, you can see this is John F. Kennedy speaking in 1961 at the National Prayer Breakfast. You establish a state religion by allowing or encouraging organizations to distribute religious scripture of the state religion on government property or in public schools, like in this picture from Wahaiba High School in 2013. Our organization filed a lawsuit then against the school board for such a violation, and not because of the distribution of religious scripture, but because they refused to allow our organization to do the same. You give religious privilege to adherents when judges rule in child custody cases to penalize those not professing allegiance to the state religion by awarding custody to the other parent, the one that claims to be a follower of the state religion. You give religious privilege to the state religion when you have civil marriage ceremonies that include religious language from the state religion, even when those take place at the courthouse and not in a church. You give privileges to the state religion when you allow or promote the display of religious monuments on public property to the exclusion of all others. In the photograph, you see the Bladensburg Cross. This is just right outside of Washington, D.C. And this case was lost last spring when the court decided that it's been there long enough and it's secular enough. So all it takes is time and ignorance of basic religious principles to decide that a monument is not religious enough to violate the Establishment Clause. And you can't have a state religion without having outsiders. So you'll have to otherize and exclude some people from the privileges. This is how you squelch dissent and build support through fear of reprisal for detractors. You establish a state religion by allowing companies to hire and fire people based on the religious tenets and values of the state religion, regardless of the religious tenets and values of everyone else. At the same time, you allow businesses to refuse to serve those who do not conform to the state religion's expectations. And you certainly have to allow social services that are provided by religious organizations to discriminate against some of their clients because of religious beliefs and non-conforming practices. You establish a state religion by having a practice of swearing an oath in the courts as well as for elected officials on the holy book of the state religion. Those who don't do so are called out as outsiders. Of course, discrimination would be permitted against viewpoints and even people that oppose the state religion by their very existence. And we see this today in excluding LGBTQ people from full equality. Even those who would consider themselves Christians that are in this community are not safe from discrimination. And lastly, you establish a state religion by conflating national pride with religious morality. So I hope you recognized some, if not all, of these examples, because they are not hypotheticals. These are the actual violations of the Establishment Clause that Unitarian Universalists and humanists, pagans, Wiccans, atheists, Jews, and many other minority traditions are fighting against all the time. And of all those benefits, all those advantages that the majority religion sees in society today, keep in mind that not one of those benefits required it to have a proclamation stating that the majority religion is the state religion. It simply has these advantages because of its majority status. This is the precise definition of religious privilege. It would seem to me that we might already have an establishment of religion in the United States, and we just don't realize it. You see, there's so much more to establishing a religion than just making an official declaration. So how do you make the argument, if it comes up, that any incursion into religious privilege offered by the state is the same thing as making a law respecting an establishment of religion? I would put it this way. If a religion can have all the benefits that Christianity has today without being the official religion of the United States, how much difference will it make if they are declared the official religion? What good is the piece of paper that would be written on if they already have all of these privileges? You see, the people that make the point that the Establishment Clause is just about naming an official religion are the ones putting our secular government to death by 1,000 cuts. They are the ones saying that they should have all those benefits that I listed, but that they don't need an official declaration because that's not allowed. And they surely don't need any official declaration to know that their reign over the United States is ordained by their God. I suggest to you that it's impossible for a state religion to have any impact on society by just being declared so. You have to have the money, you have to have the power, you have to give it control and access, you have to give some people privilege, and you have to remove privilege from others. Without that, all you have is a piece of paper to frame and put on the wall. Because it's not the act of creating a national or state religion, it's the effect of doing so that matters. It's not the act, but the effect of that action. To favor one religion over another, or to favor religion over non-religion, would in effect establish a state religion. Thanks so much for listening and for your continued vigilance to preserve the wall of separation between religion and government. I'm going to share my screen again so I can give you a couple of resources there that I hope you'll find interesting. Take a look at those and my email address for those of you who want to respond to the things that I've said today. Thanks very much.
Thank you, David. Wow, that was really interesting. Well, we're gonna get fired up and sing a hymn and even dance if you feel so moved with Glenn Thomas Rideout from the First UU Church in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And he will be singing, "We Are Building a New Way." We know this hymn. I know you can sing. And no one will be able to hear you but your pet or your partner, so take it away.
Come on, load.
Dim dwedu badu badu dim dwedu badu boo dim dwedu badu
Okay, our closing words today. We extinguish this chalice flame, daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith, that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail in this nation across the earth. Okay, we are going to switch to joys and concerns and discussion with Diana Reed calling on you.